Thank you very much, Ian, for that introduction, and a very warm hello and welcome to everyone following this event globally. And thank you very much to CIO Africa for the Africa eGov Summit. And thank you for inviting me to talk on the subject of proactive government services and linking these to life events. Indeed, Estonia has quite a few of such examples to share. I will start on the first topic of the very first event, the registration of a person into the government database. For many countries globally and in the African region, the identification and registration of persons starts later on in life, not necessarily at the point of birth. Very often, such registration is related to the need to apply for a national ID or passport, with the need to start to work. We can see some of the historic reasons for such practices. Identification and registration of persons in many of the British colonies, such as Kenya, dates back to the year 1915. It was mandatory at that time for a male African of 16 years and above to register and to carry identification papers. At that time, the identification papers were serving the purpose of controlling the movement of the Africans and to facilitate the payment of hut tax. It was also the basis for recruitment of the male Africans into the colonial labor force. Even when, many decades later, the adjustments were made to include females into the mandatory registration, the age for registration was still maintained as 16, often considered the appropriate age to start to work, to have independence, and to be responsible for submission of taxes to the government. Registration of persons at the age of maturity carries normally with it the government's need or intentions associated with security, social transactions such as marriage, welfare of elderly, economic activities that the person is expected to engage in, and the ability to participate in political activities or expressions such as voting. Currently, the global trends, however, are to actually register every newborn at birth. One of the leaders creating awareness for such change is the immediate former president of Estonia, Her Excellency Kersti Kaljulaid, who is the global advocate for every woman, every child, appointed by the Secretary General of the United Nations earlier this year. According to UNICEF, around a quarter of children under the age of 5 have not had their births recorded, despite this being a human right. No registration means that there is no birth certificate to prove the age. Hence, they are put at higher risk of being forced into work, being forced into early marriages, or being actually rendered stateless. Lack of registration also increases the risk of human trafficking, one of the most profitable black market commodities in the current world. In this regard, Her Excellency Kersti Kaljulaid considers that technology could indeed be the best way to overcome this challenge. Every mother could register the birth of the new human being using a mobile phone. Of course, other more advanced and more sophisticated systems could be developed. However, on a mobile-first continent such as Africa, a quick notification and the details of the newborn child to the National Population Registry could be a way to speed up central registration of this important life event, the very first life event that every human being experiences. With the birth registered, it is then quite easy for the system to automatically, or as we call it, this kind of entirely system and registry-based interaction and generation of notification and prompts, we call it automagically, to generate the next sequence of expected events, actions, and requirements. In Estonia, all people are registered in the population registry. Every person has their unique identifier, a personal identification number in the system. Kenya has implemented a similar registration, Huduma number. In Estonia, when a new baby is born, the newborn is associated in the population registry with the unique identifier of the mother and of the father when applicable. The stressful and very important task of naming the newborn does not need to occur concurrently with even more important but equally stressful event of the birth itself. Later on, when the mother and child are at home, the parents can log into the government portal where they will see the unique identifier of their child associated with themselves and can give the child a name right there in the system. The subsequent logical prompts from the system will be to do with the immunization and the child well-being checks. In addition to the common infancy years follow-up for child immunization, in Estonia, the government pays a parental allowance to the family. Before creating the interoperability between the government registries, something that one of the Estonian speakers later on will also speak about, the parent needed to go in person and with a portfolio full of papers to the government offices, one to the next, often with the child in tow, to get an official printout of the birth certificate, present the same to the municipal office, confirm that they reside in their jurisdiction, then take the proof of the same, including employment records, to the social services for the payment of the parental allowances, just to mention a few of the many stops and documents required. With the interoperability between the relevant registries, the allowance simply starts to get paid to the bank account of the parent, up to the time the child turns 18 years of age. Similar automatic or automagic events take place, which are then following thereafter registration of the child to the school. In Estonia, the nearest school is considered the school where the child would attend, unless the parent makes a different indication in the system. In Estonia, education is mandatory, and the parent is responsible for ensuring that the child gets the education. With the education registry also being connected to in the background, it is easy for the government to have the tools to enforce this law. No child can fall between the cracks in the digital system. No child will be forgotten. No child will be left behind. All the next events, application for an ID card or passport, registration into tax system with employment, prompt to vote, prompt to check accuracy of personal tax declarations, retirement benefits, etc., occur in the system. What is often considered the biggest pain in countries where once only principle has not been adopted as law is not only that the life events in their logical occurrence need an effort on the side of the person, it is actually the need to submit the very same information about oneself each time one goes to a doctor's office, the bank, to renew insurance, to apply for a driving license, or to renew the same, to apply for personal identification or travel documents, or to go back renewing the very same. The person needs to fill in the very same information that the government already has about him or her. The name, date of birth, gender, address, phone number, next of kin, many of which never change in one's lifetime. Yet one needs to fill in these again and again and again. Something that could be an immediate benefit for all from the very first steps of interoperating registries, even before all the magic of intelligent prompts starts to occur. I think we should not be blind to the fact that while there are benefits to the population at large from the scenarios I have described, the biggest beneficiary is the government. It is able to implement the very same needs that have been there always: internal and cross-border security, identity verification, tax compliance, registration of relevant social events, child health, and universal education. Some of these that are actually resisted by the population. Estonian experience has been that the more benefits there are to the citizen, the more likely they are to comply, and the more likely they are to register themselves and to register their children, and to look forward to the services that they can expect to receive from the government, and the ease of interacting with the institutions also in the private sector. One last point from our experience. As you probably have heard in my speaking, there will be large amounts of data produced in the systems, also known as big data, the next gold. Governments indeed need to make sure that the data flows and is in there, that they have the required capabilities and abilities to analyze the data. But at the very same time, that privacy has to be protected. Her Excellency Kersti Kaljulaid says, the governments can only handle big data concerning their own people if they promise the people that they will not misuse that data. Let's generate the gold. Let's use the gold, the big data, to deliver better, easier, faster, logical, beneficial, individualized services to the population. Thank you.